If you stop reacting, something strange happens. People start exposing themselves, not because you challenge them, but because silence removed their mask. Most people believe that reacting is a sign of strength. They think fast responses show confidence, intelligence, dominance. But reaction is rarely power. Reaction is evidence that something outside of you has reached inside of you and taken control. The moment you react emotionally, you surrender authorship of your state. Your tone, your words, even your body language are no longer chosen. They are triggered. That is not command. That is compliance dressed up as confidence. Reaction is automatic. It lives in habit, conditioning, and unresolved emotion. When someone interrupts you and you snap back, that is not strength. That is reflex. When criticism makes your chest tighten and your voice rise, that is not authority. That is exposure. Reaction means someone else set the tempo, and you followed. Emotional control always belongs to the person who can wait, who can breathe, who can decide rather than discharge. Observation changes the entire dynamic. Observation creates distance between what happens and what you do about it. In that distance, clarity forms. Instead of rushing to defend, explain, or correct, you watch. You listen not just to words, but to timing, tone, and motive. You notice what is being said and why it is being said now. Observation is not passive. It is active awareness without emotional leakage. When you observe, you stop volunteering your energy. You stop feeding volatility. Many conflicts only survive because both sides keep supplying emotion. Take one side away, and the structure collapses. Observation starves chaos. It removes the oxygen reaction provides. This is why calm unsettles people who expect resistance. They prepare for friction, not stillness. They anticipate emotion, not composure. Emotional command is not about suppression. It is not about pretending you feel nothing. It is about choosing not to let feeling drive behavior. You can feel anger without expressing it. You can feel hurt without broadcasting it. You can feel pressure without rushing to relieve it through reaction. Command means emotion informs you, but does not lead you. The person who reacts is predictable. Push here. Get this response. Say this. Trigger that. Predictability is vulnerability. Anyone who understands your triggers can move you at will. Observation breaks that loop. When you no longer react on cue, you become difficult to manipulate. People lose leverage over you because they no longer know which button works. Notice how often reaction is tied to the need to be understood. We rush to clarify because we fear misinterpretation. We defend because we fear judgment. We argue because we fear losing status. Reaction is often rooted in insecurity disguised as urgency. Observation asks a different question. Does this actually require my response right now? Many things lose their power when you let them sit unanswered. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality, silence forces others to confront themselves. When you don't react, people hear their own words more clearly. They notice their tone. They feel the weight of what they just said. Reaction distracts them from that self-awareness. Observation hands it back to them. Emotional command also changes how your words land. When you finally do speak, your voice carries weight because it is not constant. People listen differently to someone who does not talk impulsively. They sense restraint. They feel intention. Reaction floods conversations with noise. Observation filters noise out. There is also a physical component to this. Reaction lives in the body before it reaches the mouth. Tight jaw, shallow breath, elevated heart rate. Observation begins with regulating the body. Slow the breath. Relax the shoulders. Unclench the jaw. When the body steadies, the mind follows. Command starts somatically, not verbally. Many people fear that if they don't react, they will be disrespected. The opposite is usually true. Consistent reaction signals emotional availability without boundaries. It tells others they can access you at any intensity and get a response. Observation introduces limits. It communicates that access to you requires self-control on their part as well. Think about who you respect most. It is rarely the person who reacts the loudest. It is the one who stays grounded under pressure, the one who does not rush to prove anything, the one who can sit in discomfort without scrambling to escape it. That presence communicates authority without effort. Observation also protects your future self. Reaction solves the immediate emotional discomfort, but often creates long-term consequences, words you can't take back. Conflicts that escalate unnecessarily. Relationships damaged by moments of unmanaged emotion. Observation delays gratification in favor of alignment. It trades short-term relief for long-term respect. This shift does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You stop responding to everything and start responding to what matters. You choose timing. You choose tone. You choose whether engagement is even necessary. That is command. Over time, people adapt to your stillness. Some will respect it. Some will test it. Some will grow uncomfortable around it because they can no longer control the interaction emotionally. That discomfort is not your problem. It is evidence that the dynamic has changed. When you stop reacting, you start seeing patterns. You recognize who thrives on provoking emotion. You notice who only feels powerful when others lose control. You identify situations that are designed to rush you into a response. Observation turns confusion into data. This is why emotional command feels quiet. There is no performance, no display, no announcement, just consistency. Calm today, calm tomorrow, calm under pressure. People trust what is consistent. They fear what they cannot move. Reaction is exhausting because it keeps you on alert, always bracing for the next trigger. Observation conserves energy. It allows you to remain centered regardless of external volatility. That tiness becomes your baseline. Eventually, you realize something subtle but important. You don't need to win every moment. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to respond to every challenge. Power is not proven through constant engagement. It is revealed through restraint. Emotional command is the ability to remain self-directed in environments designed to provoke. It is choosing your response rather than being chosen by it. It is understanding that the strongest position is often the one that waits, watches, and acts only when action serves you rather than your ego. When you stop reacting, something uncomfortable happens for the people around you. They lose the feedback they were expecting. Most interactions rely on a predictable exchange of emotional signals. Someone provokes, someone responds, someone criticizes, someone defends, someone withdraws, someone chases. These patterns are not random. They are power exchanges. Reaction keeps them alive. The moment you remove your reaction, the pattern breaks. And when a pattern breaks, truth leaks out. People reveal themselves most clearly when their usual influence stops working. A person who relies on intimidation becomes louder. A person who relies on charm becomes impatient. A person who relies on guilt becomes accusatory. None of this happens when you react on cue, because your reaction confirms their strategy is effective. Observation exposes whether they have substance or only tactics. Reaction protects other people from being seen. It distracts from intent by shifting focus to emotion. When you react, the conversation becomes about your tone, your words, your behavior. When you don't, attention stays where it belongs, on them. Their choice of words, their timing, their motivation. Observation removes the smokescreen. This is why some people escalate when they don't get a reaction. They are not trying to communicate, they are trying to regain control. Escalation is not confidence. It is dependency on emotional leverage. When you stay calm, they are forced to show how they operate under resistance. That is where truth lives. Power dynamics are not decided by volume or speed. They're decided by who can remain grounded while the other becomes exposed. The person who reacts is participating in the other person's frame. The person who observes forces the other to operate without reinforcement. That imbalance shifts authority naturally without confrontation. Notice how manipulation depends on urgency. Manipulators rush you. They want immediate answers, immediate emotion, immediate reassurance. Observation dissolves urgency. It introduces time. Time reveals intent. Someone with honest motives can tolerate pauses. Someone with hidden agendas cannot. When you stop reacting, people start filling the silence. They explain more than necessary. They justify themselves. They contradict earlier statements. Silence creates pressure, and pressure reveals cracks. Reaction relieves pressure. Observation applies it. This is especially clear in conflict. In an argument, the person who stays composed gathers information while the other spends energy. Emotion drains clarity. Calm sharpens it. Over time, the calm person gains strategic advantage simply by seeing more clearly. Many people are uncomfortable being observed without control. They want to manage how they are perceived. Reaction gives them that control because they can redirect the interaction. Observation removes that option. They have to sit with themselves. That discomfort often exposes insecurity, entitlement, or dishonesty. This is not about winning or dominating. It is about understanding reality instead of being swept up in performance. When you react, you participate in theater. When you observe, you step backstage and see how the show is run. Power dynamics shift because emotional labor shifts. The reactive person does the work of stabilizing the interaction. The observer does not. That alone changes who holds leverage. The person doing less emotional work usually holds more power. You also begin to notice who respects boundaries and who resents them. When you stop reacting, respectful people adjust. They slow down, they become more thoughtful. Disrespectful people push harder. That contrast is valuable information. Reaction blurs it. Observation sharpens it. There's also a change in how people approach you over time. Those who rely on drama drift away. Those who value clarity remain. Your environment reorganizes itself around your emotional standards. You don't need to announce boundaries. Observation enforces them quietly. People often mistake reaction for engagement. They think if you don't react, you don't care. In reality, not reacting often means you care enough to not let impulse drive the outcome. Observation is selective engagement. It means you choose when involvement is worthwhile. When power dynamics shift, some people will accuse you of changing. They will say you're distant, cold, different. What they really mean is that you are no longer predictable. Predictability benefits those who want control. Unpredictability threatens it. You begin to see how often people test for access. Small comments, subtle digs, emotional bait. Reaction grants access. Observation denies it. Over time, people learn how to approach you, or they stop trying. This also applies internally. When you observe your own impulses instead of reacting to them, you expose your own patterns. You see where ego wants to defend, where fear wants to rush, where insecurity wants to explain. That self-awareness shifts your internal power dynamic as well. You stop being ruled by the loudest emotion in the room, even when that room is your own mind. Truth prefers stillness. It does not survive chaos. Reaction creates noise. Observation creates space. In that space, intentions become visible, motives become clear, and dynamics rearrange themselves without force. The strongest shift is subtle. People stop testing you as much. They stop provoking. They become more careful with their words. Not because you demanded respect, but because your presence requires it. Observation raises the cost of emotional games. When you stop reacting, you stop volunteering your position. You stop revealing your triggers. You stop advertising what moves you. That alone rebalances power. Information is currency. Reaction overshares. Observation collects. Eventually, you realize that many conflicts were never about the issue. They were about control, about dominance, about validation. When you remove reaction, those motives lose their cover. What remains is either genuine communication or nothing at all. This is why observation feels lonely at first. Fewer emotional exchanges, less noise. But it is also why it feels stable. You are no longer being pulled into other people's storms. You are watching them from solid ground. When people are fully seen, without reaction to soften the view, they cannot hide behind narratives. They show who they are through persistence, escalation, withdrawal, or adjustment. Observation does not judge, it records. And once you see clearly, you are no longer guessing where you stand. The dynamic speaks for itself.